A hush settles over 18th century Seoul as dusk swirls past paper lanterns, their soft amber glow dancing on lacquered wooden eaves. You feel the cool breath of the Han River carried through bamboo shutters, carrying hints of pressed rice and distant laughter. You probably won't make it through this day, but that's okay. Whisper it to someone, and maybe tap that gentle like button. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and whisper your location and local time in the comments. You're never alone in the quiet. Now let's ease into tonight's journey. You rise from a low, straw-stuffed mat, tugging at layers of cotton hanbok that smell faintly of launderer's starcon last night's green tea. Outside, the courtyard's empty, just a stray leaf drifting across smooth flagstones. You step carefully. Your wooden shoes or namakashin are quiet tonight, but that wasn't always encouraged. Come morning, echoing steps meant a fine or worse. Time in the temple's lecture hall listening to philosophers old before they were born. Inside, the papered walls glow, and an attendant glides across the floor like a shadow. Someone whispered your here to witness, so less quiet you ordinance say a law so sleepy you could almost doze off before it's explained. Legend says that in 1765, King Zhengzhou declared all court shoes must be soft-soled or risk a public admonition. The idea was to be revelry, it was respect, calm, and order under moonlight. You lean against a folded screen painted with plum blossoms. Your hanbok's leaf brushes its painted branches soft, quiet, not loud enough to wake a mouse. And yet, someone walking fast in lacquered clogs could disturb a scholar's late-night calligraphy, or worse, tipple Anton and start a fire. Not far away, a footstep echoes barely. A garden silken Gir Yang walks by, his shoes silent, measured. You wonder if they scraped existence from the wood. That's exactly the point. Control, civility, harmony. Major historical fact during King Zhengzhou's reign 1776-1800. There was indeed a court injunction emphasizing soft-soled shoes for officials to reduce noise and preserve the contemplative calm of palace corridors. This extended into the city, influencing commoners to adopt cloth-soled shoes during evening hours, especially around scholarly academies. You're scribbling this in a folded notebook, ink pen heavy in your hand, reminding you that even words here must be gentle. Nearby, lacquered cabinets hold ancient volumes, one titled The Etiquette of Silence, another Footsteps of the Mind. You can't open them yet, but you imagine padded soles, layered silk, slippers shaped to hush an empire. Obscure tidbit, a mid-18th century folk tale from Zhanggang district mentions a mischievous squirrel caught stealing rice cakes from a marketplace. Its paws bound in soft straw, eaves to prevent noise, leading to a burst of small-footed thievery that forced women vendors to adopt straw-metal alarm systems. Historians still debate whether the story was satire or actual squirrel collaring. You sip a cup of cooled barley tea, bitter, warm, and almost apologetic. Your shoes shift. They sigh against the wooden floor. You close your eyes and imagine the night scholars tiptoeing toward a test, diplomats exchanging scrolls under the hush of namakashin, children learning to crawl so quietly a parent would never know. Ache and gutter flickers, and shadows stretch into corners like drowsy servants. You rub your eyelids, quiet a flame, and listen to silence breathe. The palace ordinance reminds us sometimes, the softest steps leave the deepest echo. Morning unfurls slow and blue, like a curtain pulled open by a sleepy hand. You wait to the faint rustle of bamboo blinds, and the muted clack of cloth shoes on stone. It's market day near Sungnaiman, and the ordinance still hums through the streets, though no one would admit it if asked. Your own shoes whisper as you pad across the courtyard, a soft apology for waking the day. You wander through narrow lanes lined with Hanoke paper lanterns swaying like drowsy fireflies above wooden thresholds. Merchants are setting out wooden crates of persimmons, fish, and shadows. A shuv ender draped in indigo weaves cloth soles into birchwood frames. He nods at your shoes in spoken respect. You nod back. King Jang Zhou's law was just tweeted it was order. Royal edicts emphasize that even officials entering the monarch's presence should tread softly as if honoring the lotus under their feet. That lotus, you learn, symbolizes purity, calm, and the hushed dignity of the court. Even the palace dogs learn it to pet silently. Major historical fact: a 1778 royal decree mandated that certain classes of officials wear cloth minus soled shoes, particularly during evening audiences and sessions of the Hall of Harmony, to reduce noise and demonstrate restraint. Artisans in Seoul quickly produced variations for citizens, blurring class lines in subtle ways. You pause at a calligrapher balancing brushes in water, there muffling their wooden sandals with cloth wraps so their strokes won't be disturbed by footsteps. You watch brush-tip dance across rice minus paper scrolls. Quiet helps creation, or at least, so the story goes. You smile, tuck your pen behind your ear, and slip into a public academy. Students are studying Chinese classics by lantern light, their shoes silent as geese in fog. The tutor glances up your shoes, meet his gaze. He smiles, approving. It's courtesy, and you're part of it. You wander back into the midday sun. The city hums with life, but underfoot, a hushed choreography unfolds: cloth, silk, soft leather, even straw minus wrapped shoes glide across stones. It's respectful, civil, and maybe sleepy. You cross the stream by stone, stepping minus stones careful. Your reflection flickers. Some unsealed scroll reads, soft steps guide the heart. You pause. Major historical fact beyond footwear. Palace ordinances regulated evening noise: no loud laughter after dark, no singing on palace stairs. The city of Seoul adopted many of these quiet hours, influencing social behavior until well into the late Joseon era. You breathe deep. The scent of roasted barley drifts. The tiles beneath your soles feel cool. Obscure tibite hidden clause in one Academy-S rulebook suggests punishments, included requiring loud shoe offenders to practice poetry at dawn in full wooden clogs. Historians still debate if this is true or a mocking annotation by a disgruntled student. You look down. Your shoes soft, measured have carried you already miles. They've whispered across centuries. And now, they lead you out of the bustling market and toward who knows. A quiet tea house. A scriptorium. A dream. You shift your feet, listening. They don't speak, but they echo. The afternoon sun slants low across the roof tiles, lighting up the streets of 18th century, so like an old silk scroll rolled open slowly. You walk beside the canal where magnolia trees lean over the water, their petals already drifting like pale confetti. Your shoes soft minus soled and courteous press against the cobblestones, barely making a sound. You try to imagine this moment with loud clogs, and frankly, it ruins the mood. You pass a tea pavilion, its roof gently sagging with the wisdom of age. Inside, an old scribe is dozing upright with a scroll in hand. His slippers dangle from his feet like punctuation marks. You bow slightly and move on. Not because you're shy, but because the moment doesn't want to be disturbed. That's the power of quiet shoes. They let the scene speak first. A woman brushes dust from her doorstep with a straw broom. Her feet are bare, perhaps in rebellion, or perhaps just a midday indulgence. A boy scurries past with one foot wrapped in linen and the other dragging a squeaky sandal. You hear a gentle reprimand from a window above the court says no squeaking near the exam gates. Major historical fact in Seoul's exam districts, especially near GWAGO examination halls, laws required silence during scholar testing seasons. Vendors padded carts, shoe peddlers offered discounts on quieter soles, and children were discouraged from running near test walls. The idea was simple: if the kingdom's future thinkers were distracted, the kingdom would pay the price. You drift into an alley where a potter stacks jars near his kiln. He wears thick hemp handles reinforced with old scrolls, his idea of recycling poetry. You pause. He gestures toward a pair of shoes hanging from a beam wide, flat, wrapped in mulberry paper. For ceremonial silence, he says. You nod as if you've known this all along. Obscure tidbite fragment of palace gossip suggests King Zheng once gifted a pair of embroidered cloth shoes to his least favorite advisor, claiming, perhaps these will improve your volume, if not your insight. Historians still debate whether this was sarcasm or sincere generosity. The shoes are now in a museum, worn down only on the outer edges, suggesting someone walked with impressive hesitation. You leave the alley. The sun is beginning its long descent. You follow its golden path through the trees and past a group of elderly men playing bad yokai, their shoes arranged neatly beside the board like quiet guards. Your own steps grow slower. You're beginning to feel it, that subtle shift where a city-ass noise folds in on itself. Dinner fires start crackling. Doors creak open. Shoes come off. And somewhere behind you, the scholar's slipper finally falls with a gentle thud. A day like a sandal left by the door is winding down. Night creeps in with silk slippers. It's subtle, gradual. Lanterns bloom to life like fireflies pinned in place. You're near the Zheng-Dong quarter, now closer to courtly shadows than marketplace noise. Here, silence is a lifestyle. Or at least a performance. You pass a narrow garden where moonflowers stretch toward paper windows. The scent is subtle herbal, sweet, a little melancholic. It reminds you of the linen bundles that wrap Seoul's soft shoes stored with mint, sandalwood, or sometimes dried plum skins. Inside one Honoke, a musician plays a gay A-jump, his fingers plucking strings like they're handling fragile thoughts. He nods toward your shoes, smiling softly. You wonder how many songs were ruined by one loud heel. Major historical fact: in court performances of the Joseon era, musicians and dancers wore specially padded shoes, or often performed barefoot to preserve the spiritual ambience. Noise was considered not only disruptive, but impure, potentially offending ancestors or deities observing from the incense sweet shadows. You pause near a gate etched with bamboo designs. A small plaque reads, "Be soft where thoughts sleep." It's not official policy, just a gentle reminder. A city as full of them. Obscure tidbits: some noble families commissioned their own shoeless rooms, where conversation was whispered and socks were provided in exchange for any type of footwear. One noble woman reportedly embroidered advice into the soles of house socks, lines like "think twice, step once." Scholars still debate whether this was philosophy or micro-management. You reach a quiet courtyard. Candles flicker behind rice-paper walls. A monk in training sweeps fallen leaves from a stepping path, his robes brushing the ground like shy rain. You hear the tap of his broom and nothing else. His shoes. Thin cloth tied with thread dyed in tea. You step past him and find yourself at a low bench overlooking the stream. The water moves slow. The breeze carries laughter from a distant house, short, polite, almost rehearsed. Your shoes rest beside you, steam rising from the cobbles in the cool. You let them breathe. And for a moment, the ordinance that felt so distant now fits you perfectly, like quiet shoes after a long walk home. Morning peels back the sky like a scroll unrolling, widens slow. The rooftops are still wet with dew, but the air already smells of millet porridge and wood smoke. You sit on the wooden step outside your borrowed quarters in the scholars' district, half awake, one sock on, one shoe forgotten entirely. It's fine. You'll get there. Across the courtyard, a maid sweeps the path with rhythmic strokes, soft like the swish of silk skirts. You notice she walks your minus first, toes quiet. Intentional. Practiced. Somewhere along the street, a bell tinkles, not a loud chime, more of a hush on a string. Market's open. You remember the law about quiet shoes again. Still feels absurd. Still feels lovely. You lace your shoes loosely like you don't quite mean it, and head toward the Confucian bookstore, where even the paper seems to whisper. Major historical fact: Joseon society deeply valued decorum and spatial harmony. Public noise, especially in elite districts or near palaces, was seen as a disruption to moral order. Etiquette books from the era described the sound of steps as a sign of upbringing. Those who walked too loudly were, essentially, failing the social test with every footfall. You pass a group of students practicing bows, their shoes lined up like well-behaved ducklings. Each bow is deep, slow, deliberate. Their teacher taps a stick gently on the stone whenever someone moves too fast. The sound is softer than your heartbeat. A boy trips, landing with an audible grunt. Everyone freezes. The teacher raises an eyebrow. Again, she says, and they do 20 more bows in total silence. You wonder how so their calves must be. Then you wonder if that's part of the lesson. Obscure tidbit in one etiquette manual from the late 1700s seconds. There's a curious note: if walking near honored guests, ensure your steps match the rhythm of the host's breathing. Scholars still debate whether this was literal or just overly poetic passive-minus aggression from someone who hated surprises. You duck into the bookstore. It smells like ink and promise. A man with a thin mustache nods toward the sandal rack. You remove yours, step onto the reed mat floor, and instantly feel taller, quieter, more responsible. You browse scrolls on astronomy, poetry, and surprise a pamphlet on how to fold cloth shoes for ceremonial storage. The clerk approaches with a steaming cup of barley tea. For the mind, he says, and for the ankles. You're not sure which he means more seriously. You sip. You read. You stay longer than intended. Outside, shoes wait like sentinels, quietly loyal. Afternoon again, and the sun has turned syrupy, dribbling over the wooden beams of the scholars' district like warm honey. You're seated now in the corner of a courtyard tea house, where the floor creaks just enough to remind you it's alive, but not so much that it breaks the mood. The server glides toward you in soft minus, soled shoes dyed a gentle indigo. She bows, places your tea tray down without a sound, and vanishes like punctuation. The only thing louder than her shoes is the steam rising from the teacup. You take a sip and feel your spine uncoil. Major historical fact in 18th century Seoul, especially in the neighborhoods surrounding palaces and Confucian academies, there were detailed regulations about domestic construction. Floorboards were to be made of specific woods that didn't squeak. Households even padded their floors with layered rice paper for extra hush. In a way, silence was engineered into daily life. A gentle laugh from the other table, someone discussing poetry, or, more likely, debt. Their shoes are stacked beneath their table like quiet evidence of better manners. You adjust yours. They haven't made a sound all day, which probably means you've finally broken them in. Across the courtyard, a dog trots by wearing tiny fabric socks. You blink. No one else reacts. The animal disappears under a bench in size. Somewhere, a noble family is paying very good money for canine compliance. Obscure tidbits: some aristocratic households had their pets' shoes custom-minus fitted to avoid disturbing the mood during dinner ceremonies. One surviving sketch shows a tiny pair of silk booties with embroidered dragons, presumably more symbolic than fierce. A monk enters the tea house, robes swaying like wind-tossed parchment. He sits near you and removes his straw sandals with practiced reverence. You nod to each other. Words aren't necessary. Here, the quiet is fluent. He pulls out a scroll. You pull out your thoughts. Together, you read not the same text, not even the same topic, but with the same rhythm, slow, warm, deliberate. And when you finally rise, your shoes barely make a sound. Evening drips down the sky like ink on water, slow, expanding, inevitable. You find yourself back near Gyeongbokgung Palace, walking along the long perimeter wall where stone meets spine minus shadow and footsteps turn to whispers. Each step is measured, cushioned by dust and centuries of etiquette. You pause beneath a paper lantern hanging from a wooden beam. It flickers slightly, glowing like a well-mannered moon. A man passes behind you, his robes barely brushing the air. No sound, not even a cough. You start to wonder if silence is contagious. Major historical fact: the royal grounds in 18th century Seoul were zones of acoustic expectation. Official guards were trained, not just in martial skill but in how to move silently. Archery practice included silent form drills, and messengers wore felt padded shoes when delivering court notices. Within the inner court, even laughter had to be subdued. Joy was acceptable, raucousness was not. You walk past an older couple sitting quietly on a low stone bench. The man is whittling something, a hairpin maybe. The woman hums a song you've never heard, soft and slow, like chess, not trying to remember the tune so much as gently forget it. Your shoes crunch once on a stray pebble. They both glance at you. Not judgmental, just present. You bow. They nod. The pebble rolls away. You pass a side gate guarded by a man with his eyes closed. Meditating. Sleeping. Who can tell? His shoes are lined up neatly beside him, polished and peaceful. You don't disturb him. Further along, a small shrine glows with candlelight. You remove your shoes before stepping onto the mat. The warmth of the floor seeps into your socks. You kneel. You breathe. You listen to nothing, and it tells you everything. Night deepens. You're home, or as close to home as this borrowed room of rice paper walls and fragrant cedar beams can be. A lamp burns low beside your bedding. Outside, someone plays a flute, barely. The notes seem to drift like petals, delicate, slow, and just slightly hesitant. Maybe they're still learning. Maybe that's the point. You sit with a scroll across your lap. It's blank. For no. Major historical fact: personal journaling became common among the literate Yangbin class during late Joseon. Many wrote in silence, often at night, treating the act of writing as both confession and meditation. Entire volumes were devoted to the mood of footfalls, the honorable silence of pine, or the unspoken lessons of floor dust. Some even recorded the sounds they didn't hear. You dip your brush in ink, hesitate, then write a single line: today, I did not startle the street. It feels like enough. The candle flickers. Outside, a child runs briefly past your window, giggling, then abruptly stops. A parent shushes. Footsteps soften. Peace restored. You smile. Obscure tidbit in one surviving letter from a nobleman to his grandson. The elder writes, side, trust you've chosen friends who do not clap when they laugh. Whether this was meant literally or as a metaphor for refined company remains deliciously unclear. You lie down. The mat is firm, but the blanket smells faintly of clean laundry and distant wood smoke. Somewhere in the city, a rooster flaps its wings in the dark, not crowing yet, just checking. Your shoes sit neatly beside the door, their quiet presence proof that you've learned something valuable. Not everything needs to be loud to be important. Especially not now. Especially not tonight. Night has fallen like a soft shawl, and the courtyard is hushed, only the occasional crinkle of bamboo. Eaves reminds you that the world still turns. You step outside barefoot, lantern in hand, sandals folded neatly at your threshold like quiet sentinels. Lantern light pools at your feet, soft and amber, spilling across the cold stones like memory. Inside, a monk chants in the chapel. The voice is so low it seems to float rather than echo. Candlelight dances across his bald head, making him look like a gentle moonbeam herself. You pause by the temple pond, watching your reflection ramble among KOI startled by your presence. The water ripples. The KOI glide away, their scales flickering like tiny lanterns. Your assignment tonight. Observe the nocturnal rituals of the cloister rite, quietly, in the warmth of your room. But first, you wonder. You brush your fingertips along cold stone, tracing moss that glimmers under lamplight. You kneel at an altar of incense, but don't kneel the monk's chant is enough. You breathe in spices and dash. For a moment your steps are nothing but intention. Major historical fact in many Buddhist temples of 18th-century East Asia, night recitations of sutras were common and accompanied by incense rituals meant to calm both mind and ear. Monks often wore straw sandals or went barefoot to symbolize humility and to avoid disturbing the Dharma's flow. You pick up a fallen lotus petal floating in the water, turn it over in your palm. You can almost feel the composition, the vein softness, the scent that once warmed an altar. You set it gently back. The water accepts it without sound. Obscure Tibetan temple legend tells of a novice who fell asleep during a night chant and dreamed the Buddha handed him a lantern of lotus petals, each glowing with a whispered prayer. The novice awoke breathless, but the petal remained pale in his dream, and vanished by dawn. Historians still debate whether this was metaphor or very vivid indigestion. You smile at the memory, real or legend. You turn the lantern and its golden circle lights your way back to the scriptorium, where candles gutter like sleepy breaths. Inside, you brush aside a fallen scroll, unroll a fresh one. Ink is waiting, thickened, patient. You dip your pen, let the liquid black bloom. You write not what you saw, but what you felt the pause between chant and deco. The soft glint of fish, the hush that hugged the temple walls. And when the candle finally dies, you blow it out and lie back, letting night press around you like a borrowed quilt. Moonlight filters through paper screens. Somewhere, a rooster flaps against a checking. You close your eyes, the temples of sound folded away. Your words rest on the scroll, proud in their soft glow. Dawn breaks again, not with sunlight, but with the gentle patter of rain on paper rooftops. You awaken wrapped in quiet, the air scented with water and wooden yesterday's incense. Lanterns no longer burn. Only day begins hesitantly. You step outside. The courtyard stones are slick. You choose your steps like a choreographer working in slippers. Each footfall is deliberate, absorbing rather than echoing. You move toward the scriptorium, where scrolls wait like attentive students. Your task today document the law of silent steps being taught to temple novices because sandals in a monastery still must whisper. You find the novices lined along mats, each knotting cloth over their winter sandals. The monk teacher demonstrates how to walk like falling snow, soft, continuous, no sudden edges. He says each step a vow. You write it down. You stroll among them, feeling the cloth, the cushioned bottoms, the consistency of movement. You remember the edict from the palace about quiet commission. This is temple life to footfall as discipline. Major historical fact, this practice enforcing a Seoul called silent walk was recorded in several monastic codes across East Asia. The idea was to cultivate midfosons, reduce disturbances, and train the senses to awareness instead of habit. You chat in whispers with a novice whose cloth soles are marked by ink. She jokes her soul smells like yesterday's prayers. You chuckle and jot ink-footed humility. She nods approvingly. Obscure tidbit, one anecdote mentions a monk who slipped during the silent walk course and fell flat. He vowed to the Buddha that he had only practiced descent. Humility retained no punishment. Some versions of the tale say he slipped 3 times on purpose. Historians still debate whether that's bold devotion or strategic clumsiness. You watch the monk demonstrate turning corners without breaking the stride. You imitate him and find it meditative, your breath measured, your gaze soft. You realize to walk quietly is to live gently. You finish your notes, roll them carefully, slip them into a cloth tube. But you stay a little longer, letting the rain become soundtrack. The stones become piano keys pressed by gentle feet. When you rise to leave, the novices bow. You bow back. Your sandals make no sound. The rain continues, slow and purposeful. You think of so less quiet streets, lacquered court passageways, dawn markets where steps were so soft to remember each other through tread, not talk. You step away, cloth soles gliding. The day begins in silence, and the silence now practiced is proud. Dusk settles again, gentle and unhurried, while the distant hills behind Seoul's eastern gate blush pink under lingering sun. The day finished its errands hours ago, but you haven't quite shed its pace yet. You sit cross-legged on the courtyard's low wooden veranda, tracing the grain of the floorboards with traveling fingertips, tasting a stillness that grew on you like silk. Your assignment tonight is peculiar attended demonstration of sound mapping in the scholar's necks. The idea? To chart every soft footfall through palace corridors, ghostly steps, lingering smells, whispered drafts of conversation, all catalogued for posterity. The annexes papers rustle under lamplight, as if eager to record least minus unnoticed moments. You rise, stretch slowly, go minus oriented yawns and gentle bone creaks, and step inside. There, a small group of scholars and scribes waits, robes layered like clouds over their knees. A calcboard stands at the room's center, already marked with concentric circles, each labeled with footstep qualities: hushed, husky R, hush minus painted. They beckon you in. The demonstration begins. A scribe strides kindly and softly across the room, his cloth shoes muffling each echo like petals on velvet. He marks his path 12 steps, each measured, annotated slide minus forward deco on wood board. Pause 1, 2, 3, silent. You copy alongside them, counting undinching along. Your own shoes remain quiet. You breathe. Major historical fact in late Jose on Seoul. Certain palace rooms and scholar quarters were audited for acoustic properties, some recorded as echo chambers of thought, and indeed footstep mapping was used to optimize layout and design. Evidence even survives of boards labeled quiet board flooring from the 1792s. Obscure tidbit: one scholar's notebook from 1787 includes the observation. When a duck walks across polished boards, its footfall becomes prophecy. No one knows what that means, though it's speculated to reference an unusual philosophy test or poetic device. At one point, the scholar invites everyone to tap a pebble against the board, then place a shoe down and take 2 measured steps. The results are charted pebble bright ping. Shoe muffled pet. Cloth near silence. One annotates silence isn't absence, it's a texture. You write that down. A young scribe seated near you smirks and murmurs, "This is how we know who walked in at midnight and who crept." You nod slowly. Tools of detection, not intrusion. When the demonstration ends, you linger to chat. The calcboard is wiped away. The circles vanish like mirrored moons. The scholars murmur, fetching tea, lingering on syllables. You offer to transcribe tonight's results, 20 pages. They nod, offer you a warm barley infusion. You accept. Outside, pine boughs sway like gentle phrasing. Lanterns flicker in the courtyard, their replenished wicks sending breath upward. You sip your tea, quiet and graced. As you return to your room, you feel the walls breathe around you, aware of who's passed through. Your own steps leave faint stories. Somewhere between measured footfall and whispered intention, the line between noise and meaning thins. You close the door behind you. Your steps stop. Silence blooms. Night deepens like ink pooling around the edges of a freshly drawn character. You lie on your mat, staring at the ceiling's painted beams, plum blossom patterns softened over decades. Earlier this evening, you received a new assignment, draft the Quiet Compendium, a guide on respectful movement in shared spaces, courtyards, writing rooms, footpaths for next month's royal etiquette. But first a walk. Lantern in hand, you wander toward the western gate, where moonlight falls in broad silk ribbons across the stone walkway. The gate stands silent, sentinel-like. You remember the feel of cloth soles on these stones, no slapping, no scraping, just warm contact measured. Suddenly, near the gate, someone exhales sharply, a young courier pausing in his hustle. You halt. He glances at your lantern minus halo-ed feet and bows. Neither of you makes a sound beyond breath. This is courtesy enacted, not spoken. Major historical fact: during the reign of King Zhengzhou, nocturnal curfews were sometimes softly enforced, guards whispering reminders to lower their voices or quiet their shoes, balancing order with gentleness. Colloquially, this was called night tingle duty, no harshness, just hushed guidance. You continue, stepping through the arch of moon and wood. A keeper of the gate watches you, eyes open but placid. You bow, and your cloth soles whisper across cool stone, flicking moonlight reflections upward. You walk toward the city walls, ancient, worn, full of centuries of tread. You run your fingers over their mossy furrows, imagining every footstep held in memory but none shushed, erased by the years of proper walking, disciplined tread, ritual movement. Obscure tidbit in old legend says that if a person walks the wall circumference in quiet steps under full moon, their footprints vanish, erased out of respect for ancestors. Scholars still debate whether that's fanciful folklore or a metaphor for humility. You pause, close your eyes, breathe slow. You hear nothing but distant rustle of leaves and perhaps the muted whistle of someone clearing a teacup in a scholar's quarters. You open your eyes. The gatekeeper is gone. The night waits. You return toward your quarters, tracing the same path back. Each step ordered only by your heart. Inside your room, the lantern flickers low. You sit at your writing desk once more. You begin the Quiet Compendium with a simple title: Footsteps of Courtesy, a Guide to Gentle Passage. Your pen flows slowly across the page. Your lantern keeps vigil. And outside, the palace walls hold their breath, quiet once more. Night drapes over the city once again, and you find yourself drawn to the Khw Amina, assembly hall not for debates, but for a lullaby of silence. Courtiers slip through its wooden gates in soft velvet and cloth shoes, their conversations muffled to curiosities. How a great empty chamber ringed with pillars is already half-minus lit by lanterns humming low like gentle witnesses. Your role tonight is as an observer of the silence minus hour. Once a month, palace guards close the hall for anyone who wishes to walk or sit in hush, bearing no petitions, only presence. You step across the threshold, and the polished floor greets your cloth soles quietly, like a petal falling. The echo of a creak and gone. Inside, a dozen figures are spaced like ink drops on rice paper. One reads poetry. Another strokes his zither. Someone kneels in meditation. The rest like you breathe. Each breath an unspoken word, each footfall a private vow of restraint. Major historical fact: during the late Joseon dynasty, certain palaces had designated listening halls, or EUMSO-HIO, where selected officials practiced silence, mindfulness, and acoustic awareness. These sessions were meant to train sensitivity and calm the mind in an era of political noise. You walk slowly to the far wall, hand trailing along lacquered wood. Each pillar is worn smooth at knee height. You pause near one. Imagine centuries of polite bows made here, heads hesitating just enough to remember humility. You bow, placing your forehead to the polished timber, chest resting atop your crossed arms, and feel centuries hum through you. You stand. Your robe whispers. A shadow bows, mirror-like from the corridor. Obscure tidbit, a hidden footnote in a scholar's journal describes how one courtesan once attended these silent hours and left behind a slipper embroidered with a secret love poem inside. Scholars still debate whether it was confession or protest and if it was ever collected. You step toward the center of the hall, where two wax figures stand a guard on duty and a silent musician. Their cloth shoes remain pristine, untouched for months. A caretaker kneels and removes dust with a soft brush, then stands and resumes stillness. You sit cross-legged on the floor, feeling the wood warmth seep through your robe. You really listen without outcome, without purpose. Your heart softens. In that hush, every exhale belongs to a lineage of quiet devotion. Every inhale connects you to vaulted ceilings of restraint and thoughtfulness. You breathe out the noise of the day's errands, the chapel, the marketplace. You close your eyes. You're no longer scribbler, observer, or traveler, but part of the silence itself. At last, a guard steps quietly to the hole center and rings a single bronze bell. Its stone blooms slowly, spreads, and fades. You open your eyes. The figures shift infinitesimally, like petals unfurling. You rise. Your shoes, soft as ever, whisper away across the floor's final gleam. The silence minus hour lifts like a silk scroll being rolled back into storage. And you exit lighter, quieter, fuller. The sky has turned to muted lavender, and the palace gates are on the cusp of closing for the evening patrol. You've been summoned not by any official, but by curiosity to the royal gardens. Tolling in quiet is one thing. Walking in sacred moonlit courtyards is another. You slip through a low arch carved with chrysanthemum vines. Lanterns cast lotus-shaped shadows on gravel paths edged by worn stone benches. You hear the gentle drip of a stone fountain, water falling in soft splatter. Your shoes sink into gravel, still muted miracles of cloth and purpose. Near the fountain, a court astronomer waits, all figure draped in midnight-blue robes peppered with embroidered stars. In silent greeting, he points toward the moon's reflection on the water's surface. The water quivers under a small breeze. The moon ripples softly. It's lunar observation, he whispers. He doesn't want to disturb the moment. You nod. Major historical fact: King Jiangzhou's reign saw an increased imperial investment in astronomy and observatories, tying celestial movements to royal rites. Quiet garden lunar-watch sessions were sometimes held for select officials. Tranquility was believed to keep the mind free of distraction and open to omens in the sky. You crouch by the fountain. The water is still gentle. The moon is sharp. You pick a pebble, release it slowly. It lands with a soft, hollow tap and sinks. It's enough. He then hands you a small jade tile inscribed with a single phrase, "Listen to your shadow." You pass it between your fingers, cool, circular, carved. Something ancient hums through your palm. Obscure, tidbit: according to one court legend, an astrologer once released thousands of ceramic frogs into a pond during moon meditation to listen to their croaks as an oracle. Graveside whisperings suggest he never repeated the ritual, but some garden farmers still swear they see tiny frogs carved of clay at twilight reflections. You smile. He smiles. The moon glances between you both. A breeze stirs the reed fence. Lanterns tremble. Cricket sky awe. You rise. He bows. You walk away, sandals silent, jade tile nestled in your robe. Outside the gardens, the gates close with a measured click. You stand in the courtyard, now silent but full. The night keeps its secrets, only releasing them to those quiet enough to notice. Your steps carry you back to your quarters, cloth soles pressing lightly across flagstones still worn from the sun. Each echo is intentional. When you reach the wooden step, you remove your shoes and set them side by side. Their fabric tops creased kindly from wear. Inside, then turns dim. A curtain flutters. You light a small candle on your desk. You unfold a blank scroll with for sections waiting for 2 nights' reflections. You dip your brush in ink, heart quiet as the courtyard's fading whisper. And you write in silence. The moon speaks. This is the last day of your long walk through whispering stones and softened shoes. You wake to the sound of rain, not loud, but thoughtful. Each drop lands like a polite knock on the tiled roof above. Outside your paper mine a covered window. The garden trees sway gently, their leaves glossy with memory. You sit beside the brazier, warming your hands. Your shoes rest on the step beside you, still damp from yesterday's garden visit. You aren't in a rush. No bells. No summons. Only the suggestion of one final errand. You're eager to deliver a scroll one you've helped copy to a retired scholar who lives near the city's edge. It's a walk of time more than distance. Through alleys where the stone paths remember every footstep, and roofs lean and like old friends listening closely. You wrap the scroll in indigo cloth, tie it gently. Slip on your quiet shoes. They hug your feet like promises. You step outside. Major historical fact in late 18th century Seoul. Quiet shoes were not merely fashion, they were regulated etiquette, especially near royal quarters and scholarly residences. Loud footsteps, particularly during ceremonial days, could warrant polite reprimand or a sideways glance that said more than a scolding ever could. You walk through the city with the rhythm of someone who's not trying to arrive only to move through. The tea shop you passed on your first day is still there. Its sign has faded more. Its door creaks the same. You smile. Passing a temple gate, you hear chanting a low vibration like a gentle loom working behind the sky. You pause. Bow once. Your shoes make no sound as you resume. The scholar's home appears behind a garden wall. You knock. A soft cough answers. Then the door opens. H.E.S. old. Korju. His robe has ink stains older than you. He accepts the scroll. He sniffs it. Lemon, he says. You nod. He smiles. They remember better that way. He sets the scroll on a shelf, already crowded with memory. Obscure tidbit one aging noble kept a collection of scented scrolls and claimed he could identify the scribe by how loud their shoes were as they approached his home. He called it the sound of character. Scholars still debate whether he was wise or simply nosy. You sit with the scholar briefly. He pours you tea. No sugar, no ceremony. Just hot and kind. Then you rise. Bow. He doesn't say goodbye. Just looks at your shoes and nods approvingly. You walk back through puddles. A bird calls somewhere behind you. Your shoes damp now, whisper one final set of steps home. You reach the gates of the palace. Step inside. You untie your shoes. Place them near the door. And you breathe. Now, let it all quiet. Let the stone paths of old Seoul slip behind your eyes. Let the smell of rain and paper, of lemon and warm fabric, wrap softly around your shoulders like a forgotten robe finally found. The scrolls are back in their shelves now, ink fully settled. The shoes, folded and resting, are no longer waiting to walk. Their cloth is loose with memory. Their silence is earned. The lanterns in the palace glow low, one last hour before extinguishing. Someone has left a kettle to steep in the corner. A belled Osum tring. It simply exists dormant on the shelf. And you? You lie down on your mat. Your feet remember the day, every pebble and plank. Your breath slows, softer now. Longer. The night folds in, like a paper and drawn close. The sky holds no urgency. Only stars, steady and still. And somewhere beyond your shutter, beyond the palace wall, beyond the path and the scrolls and the rain, a quiet wind moves through the city like a memory remembered only by the soles of your shoes. And with one last breath, you drift. Still. Soft. Silent. Proud.